Hello everyone, my name is Henrique. I'm the creator of enginesdatabase.com. It's a website that is a crowdsourced open database of game engines. And this is a weekly roundup of game engine news. So how this is going to work is that I have a news tab here, and the news tab aggregates news and articles and blog posts from the official game engine websites and social media. So I'll give you just a brief summary of the most interesting content from last week. I'll be posting also all the links on the video description down below. So yeah, let's get started. First, let's talk a little bit about Godot. Godot had two articles this last week. One of them is the 4.1.3 release candidate version. So first, this is a minor release. It's a minor release means that it's mostly bug fixing, and there is the extensive list here of bug fixes that this version has, which is great. So it should be pretty much safe to change your engine version if you're using 4.1. And this is a release candidate, so that means that this is possibly the last version of 4.1.3, unless it's covered like some major bug or whatever. It should be, it's a very standard, very safe minor version. So if you're using 4.1 in any of your projects, you should totally check this out. There's no new features here, there are no surprises here, right? And the second article that Godot had on this last week is the progress report on Godot particles. So this is a really good article if you are interested in particles, if you're using the particle systems in Godot in any of your projects, because first, it's a very pretty article. It has some really cool animations here. And also, I'll give you one highlight. Godot existing particle systems made an assumption that people would use this for more physically accurate simulations, which are suited for more realistic games. But in practice, a vast majority of projects in the Godot ecosystem choose a stylized art direction. So this is really interesting because it shows that they are changing a little bit how they are developing Godot particle systems according to the user base, right? So this is the kind of stuff that users want to make the most, at least according to the article, which is something that I believe it makes a lot of sense, using for this kind of VFX. I've seen this a lot in Unity too. So how they're going to change this? So there are a couple of new features here that they are developing for the GPU particles, but also they are changing their approach on how they are differentiating between CPU and GPU particles. Because Godot has this difference, it has two different nodes for the particle system. One of them is the GPU particles and the other is CPU particles. The idea was that one of them would be, CPU particles would be the fallback of GPU particles in the case your system doesn't have doesn't have graphic hardware acceleration, right? But here they're going to change this a little bit moving forward. CPU particles have been maintained alongside GPU particles for a long time, but it's becoming harder and harder to keep feature parity, especially after big changes such as the ones described above. CPU particles were added at the time of Glass 2 renderer in Godot 3, which did not have the capability to support GPU particles. Godot 4 has Vulkan and Glass 3 renderers, both of which support GPU particles. This makes it hard to justify maintaining 4 separate nodes in 2 different languages. And yeah, that means that moving forward, we are going to see less of this feature parity. The idea would be that CPU particles as a lower end, simpler alternative to GPU particles instead of a CPU-based one-to-one fallback option. So it's going to be an alternative, not a fallback. And so if you want cheap particles, if you want to make something for less powerful devices, you probably want to use CPU particles, but it will have less features, right? Because it makes sense for the development of Godot moving forward to have the newest features and most advanced particle effects on the GPU particle node. And you should, even if you're not using too much of particles in Godot, I think it makes sense to at least check this article, because moving forward, you're probably want to know how to use GPU and CPU particles the best, right? So this shows here a little glimpse of the changes that are going to come in the future. Now let's talk a little bit about Stride 3D. So if you're using Stride, you should check this out. It's diagnostic analyzers with Roslyn. This feature offers real-time code analysis in your IDE, enhancing your workflow. So this is a very small article. It's just about this the Roslyn diagnostic analyzer. It gives a a really standard, really cool example about when you're creating a serialized object in your code and you want to this to appear in the editor. So you probably want to check errors in this code in real time, or else like this stuff won't appear in the editor. So yeah, if you're using Stride 3D, you should check this out. If you don't know what Stride 3D is, you should check the engine. It's actually a really cool, really promising engine. It looks very similar to the standard big three engines in the market, Godot, Unreal, and Unity. And it's an open source C# game engine. It has some really cool graphic features. I won't delve too much into this right now. I think Game From Scratch channel has some really cool videos and articles about Stride 3D. So yeah, you should check this out. You should check Stride 3D if you don't know, if you never knew about this game engine before. If you are using Stride 3D, you should also check the Roslyn diagnostic analyzer, right? Now, Fyrox game engine just released 0.32 version. If you don't know Fyrox, Fyrox, it is like Unity, but in Rust. Now, this is a really bold statement, but it's not like the current state of things, right? Fyrox is still not even in its stable release version yet. It's not even 1.0. So there's a lot of improvements to make, but this is a really cool mission. And if you like Rust, you should definitely check Fyrox game engine out. The 0.32 version has, it doesn't have a theme this release, at least not that I've seen. It's just like a bunch of new features and, mostly editor UX and UI improvements. So you got standard scripts, which are like templates for the scripts in your game. There are editor improvements that are, new UI and new usability improvements in the editor. And there is something that there are even terrain editor improvements here. The fact that Fyrox is not even a stable released game engine and has a terrain editor, this is kind of amazing, because terrain editor, it's kind of like a very hard feature to make and to maintain in game engines in general. Like you don't see this a lot, but having a terrain editor, it's really cool. And you can check Fyrox out. There's the homepage here. Like most Rust projects, it has like this kind of a book as a documentation, so you can check like the templates here. There are tutorials. There are an explanation of all nodes and codes, and there are even like the tutorials here. There are FPS, and there is an RPG tutorial here, which I briefly checked out, and it looks really cool. It looks really cool. So if you like Rust, you should definitely check Fyrox. It looks really cool. It has also demo projects that run in the browser, so you should definitely check this. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Narrat game engine. They just released the 3.60 version. Now, this is just an excuse for me to talk a little bit about Narrat, because you probably don't know about it, but it's a really cool narrative driven game engine. It's a game engine for narrative kinds of games, for if you're building a story, if you're building something similar to a visual novel. If you want to check out what Narrat engine can do, you should check here on the Narrat dev website, here, Narrat games here. So there are a lot of cool examples. In the Flash especially is a really, really cool game that I played using Narrat engine. So it can give you the, what is the kind of thing that the Narrat engine can do. And it's really cool. So if you're interested in this kind of narrative games, creating like very easily this kind of story-driven games, you should check Narrat. Narrat 3.6 has live reloading for config files. This is the special new feature of Narrat 3.6. I've been checking Narrat for some time, and it looks like they're they are making a lot of releases really fast, which is really cool. It's really important for a game engine, especially this kind of very indie game engines, to update fast, so it can show that they are in active development, right? So yeah, it's really cool. If you're interested in story-driven games, you should check out Narrat. And yeah, they just released 3.6, so that's why I'm talking about it. Moving forward, we have an article on the Unreal Engine website. It's taking the leap on Nightingale, how Inflection Games upgraded from Unreal Engine 4 to Unreal Engine 5 mid-development. Now, this article is especially useful if you are first in a company like this enterprise level and you are using Unreal Engine 4, because it shows how they migrated from Unreal Engine 4 to Unreal Engine 5. And how they migrated it, it's using all those Git and perforce shenanigans, and how they organize their branches and how they organize their code. So this is very tech heavy. If you're an indie developer, even like if you are using Unreal Engine 4, you're probably going to have very different problems, because this is enterprise level. This is like a lot of engineers, a lot of game developers are working in the same code base at the same time. So how you make this migration without affecting everyone in the company, without everyone stopping their work, stopping their tracks to make this migration happen. So it's a really cool article, though, if you're interested in this kind of stuff. But especially the end of the article, if you're using Unreal, you should check this out, because it shows why it was useful to them to, even if it took 6 months to make this change, why it was useful to them. And basically it was useful because of Lumen and Nanite. Lumen is the new real-time lighting tech of Unreal Engine 5, and Nanite is the crazy, it's the insane mesh streaming tech they made for Unreal Engine 5, which basically every pretty Unreal Engine 5 demo uses to have this really cool complex scenarios with a lot of mesh, with a lot of details. And yeah, basically was really useful to them because of Lumen and Nanite. And they show here why it was really useful, what changed in their development process after using Nanite and Lumen. So it's a really cool article, especially at the end. I think it's useful for most developers using Unreal. This kind of mid part here about the Git and perforce shenanigans, it's a very enterprise level thing. If you are in a company, you probably want to check this out too. But yeah. Last but not least, we got 3 articles from Unity website. The first one is Unity September 2023 Roundup Awards, Voting Opens, and Other Community Highlights. This is just highlights for Unity Awards. I never checked this out before, so this is also my first time checking the Unity Awards. It's really cool because it shows like the different games made with Unity that launched in September. And from here, it's a really cool highlight. Steam's top 20 new releases in August featured 9 games made with Unity, including Sea of Stars, Marvel Snap, Sunken Land, and Blasphemous 2. So even, after the Unity kerfuffle, a lot of people got really mad at Unity, but this is more like a celebration of game developers that are using Unity. So it's really cool. It's really cool to see different game developers, different teams of game developers using Unity very differently. It's we are comparing here Blasphemous 2 with the Dave the Diver, I think is the name of the game. It's Dave the Diver, yes. So there are 2 very different games, and also Immortality. Immortality is in absolutely insane game. So it's really cool. It's really cool to see all those different games made with Unity. If you want, to have more this overview of what you can make with Unity, it's probably a good source to check out, right? And the second article is Toxicity in Gaming is Escalating, Find Solutions for Safe and Engaged Communities. This is a really cool article, actually. And it's more like a general article. It's obviously an enterprise article from Unity blog, so it's marketing their Fyrox. I don't know how to pronounce this. Fyrox. They are marketing Fyrox service, which is this kind of voice chat and text chat moderation, and also tech for Unity, so you can integrate this in your games. But here in the article, you can, let me look into here. Here, 2023 Toxicity in Multiplayer Games Report. You can click here, and they actually made a report of toxicity in multiplayer games. And this is more like a general report that obviously they used Unity analytics, but you know, it should be very useful if you're working in any kind of live ops multiplayer game. The summary of this, I don't think I can show you because you have to register to get the report, but it's a really cool report. It can be basically summarized in toxicity in gaming is rising, and players expect developers to solve this problem, right? And how we're going to solve this, that's really hard. You know, toxicity in games, you know, you have to use a lot of moderation tools. You have to prepare your game for this kind of stuff. So you should check this out, especially if you are doing a live ops game. And finally, we got porting Unity to Core CLR. CLR. Oh, I don't know how to pronounce. Quick disclaimer, I didn't know about this before reading the article, so this is I learned something new, you know, reading this article. But basically, Unity doesn't use the same garbage collector as the .NET ecosystem, right? The .NET Core CLR GIT runtime, it's a highly performant, more advanced, and more efficient garbage collector, but Unity actually uses Bohem. I don't know how to pronounce this too. Why there are so many things that I don't know how to pronounce. Bohem GC, Bohem garbage collector, which is a conservative, non-moving garbage collector. So there are two different things. Unity uses one special garbage collector, and the .NET ecosystem uses Core CLR GIT runtime. I don't know, I mean, looking at this article, it looks like, hey, Core CLR is, you know, it's highly performant, more advanced, so why don't you use this? Probably, I would guess that it's also like you have to be really careful around your code, and Unity uses a more general purpose garbage collector that even if it's less efficient, it should, you know, check all the checkboxes that a game developer needs. So this is a very specific, very domain-driven article. If you're interested in garbage collector, how Unity uses this, it gives a very, you know, overview explanation of how the garbage collector works in Unity. So yeah, it's an interesting, very tech-heavy article to check out. But I learned something new. So hey, that's useful, right? All right, so that's it for this week's video. I wanted to talk about a lot about more stuff. You know, there are a lot of releases. If you check here, GitHub releases, there are a lot of game engines with new updates. Most of them are minor fixes, beta releases that are not like they haven't launched the full stable release version yet. So I'm holding this for now until like there is new full releases for the other game engines. But you know, yeah, that was the most interesting content that I found for this last week, right? So full disclaimer here, I'm not a content creator. I wasn't, at least before publishing this video. So if you got any feedback, please comment down below. I'll be reading every comment. I will be answering most of the comments, and I will improve the format of the series for, you know, those next weeks. Right, I'm still learning how to pronounce stuff, so sorry about that too. But yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching, and see you hopefully next week.